guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. All right, so I wanted to wait until we got more towards the end of the confirmation hearings for Barrett before I started to talk about it. But we are on day 3, so the questioning has ended. So I wanted to jump in before we get to the final day of the confirmation, where hopefully she will be voted into the Supreme Court. And just kind of talk about it a little bit and how it has been going. So right off the bat, my opinion is this. I want to admit that prior to seeing her in the hearings themselves, or her even being nominated for the position by Trump, I really didn't know much about her. In fact, I didn't really know anything about her. When Trump started to kind of unveil who he was looking at, that's when I really started to look into the candidates that he was, considering for the position. But I will say this, after watching the hearings, okay, and not knowing anything about Coney Barrett, I have to say this, she is incredible. She has been a sight to see in these hearings. Aside from just her general background, not talking about her professional background, but she is obviously a mother and she's a wife. She has 7 children in total. 2 of them are Black children that she adopted from Haiti. One of them has special needs, okay? She is a do-it-all woman. She has a career. She basically does everything at home between her and her husband. I mean, from the laundry to the not the homeschooling, but the remote learning that her children have been doing. She talked a little bit about it in the confirmation hearings about how, they basically had this discussion about how they just had to divide and conquer. And then, people made comments about how well behaved her children were because they were there during the hearing, not all of it, but they were there during parts of the hearing. And they were so well behaved that I believe it was Dianne Feinstein commented on how well behaved her children are. And she made a little joke and she said, well, I have eyes in the back of my head. So I think from that standpoint, just as a woman and as a mother, you look at this woman and you go, you know what? Like, she may be going out for Supreme Court justice, but man, I can really relate to this chick. Like, I really feel like she knows what's going on. You know what I mean? She has been extremely composed during this entire thing. I will be the first to admit that if it were me up there getting attacked, getting asked the same question over and over and over and over and over again, I would not be able to be as composed as this woman was, because man, I looked at her and I'm just like, how is she doing this? How is she sitting there just so, I guess, still calm, making eye contact with everybody, answering everybody's question to, the best of her ability within, the constraints that she has around being able to answer questions from a legal standpoint. Repeating herself over and over again. I guess when you have 7 children, you're pretty used to that. You know what I mean? I think that probably does lend to the way that she carries herself, is the fact that she has 7 children. So, I mean, her patience has to be that of a saint, to tell you the truth. But she, again, I go back to the fact that she is very relatable, even though she's incredibly, incredibly smart. She graduated top of her class in college. And probably has the ability to wow us with legal terms and complicated language. She really doesn't. When I have watched her answer some of these questions, she really uses a lot of just simplicity in how she explains herself. She kind of uses examples so that, people can, even though she's talking to other lawyers, other people that, do what she does, she explains herself in a way that the average person watching can understand what she's trying to say. And I really, really appreciate that. I made a comparison to her, even though they're not, obviously going out for the same thing. But one of the things that really irked me about the presidential debates when I was watching Kamala Harris was her facial expressions with everything. And even Trump, Trump does it as well. Trump is guilty of it. By all means, he does it as well. He makes facial expressions quite a bit. They can be very annoying at times. But, comparing her to another woman, Kamala Harris, oftentimes, showed on her face, how she felt when somebody was asking her a question or talking to her or commenting on something. And Amy Coney Barrett just did not do that one time during these hearings that I have seen yet. I mean, she has stayed so composed in the face. Stuff that gets said to her that I would just be, if it were me, I would be so ratchet. I would be rolling my eyes. I would be like, again. I would be like, are you freaking kidding me? I would make comments like, underhanded sly comments like, are we seriously doing this again? Are you seriously asking me to denounce white supremacy when I have 2 black children sitting behind? Like, that would be me, okay? That would be me. Like, I would just be fed up with these people. But not her. She sits there and listens and stays calm. And even when they're saying something that I'm sure she agrees with, you don't even see a head nod from her, okay? You do not even see a head nod from her. And I love that about her because it shows that she is listening and that she is engaged and that she is not going to give you any previews, any reactions, which I feel is how a judge, especially a judge who's going to reside in the Supreme Court, should be in order to remain fair and consistent. Let's see what else. I haven't really seen her be directly attacked for her religious beliefs, which was something that was going on a lot on social media, that people were. She has been attacked in social media for her religious beliefs. She is an extremely religious person. In a kind of backhanded kind of way, they have questioned her a lot to kind of imply, like, would you make a comment on this case? Something that they know would be against her religious beliefs. But again, she has remained very consistent with the fact that her job as a judge is to uphold the law, regardless of her personal or religious beliefs. So she keeps repeating that over and over and over again, but Democrats continue to try to test her in those areas, which I thought was really, really interesting. Let's see. She has made it clear that she does not rule with her opinions, beliefs, or feelings. Now, this has been a very tough thing for the Democrats to accept because, as you know, the left loves to rule with their feelings, okay? They love to hit people with their feelings. So I'm sure it is like torturous for them, okay? That here's a woman that stands before them who doesn't answer these questions that they're asking her with her feelings. She's answering them with facts, which is her job as a judge, okay? To be ruled by the facts and by the law, nothing else. But they just can't wrap their arms around that. They want her to be emotionally triggered in some way. So they're asking her questions, about George Floyd and then like relating it back to her children. And, Cory Booker made a comment about, I'm sure as the mother of 2 black children, that watching, a black man get killed by a knee on his neck and a black woman, referring to Breonna Taylor, getting killed while she was asleep, which by the way, she wasn't asleep. She was in the hallway. And now we're hearing that she actually shot the gun. But I digress. But, they're trying to constantly hit her, especially with the race card. So anyway, she has been flawless. So some of the things, I'm looking at my notes here, some of the things, the Dems continue to press her for her opinion, despite the fact that she stays consistent with her answer to them, which is, I am not able to comment on any active or pending case that may come before the Supreme Court. Dianne Feinstein, it's almost comical to watch her because she literally just goes down a list of cases that she would like Amy to comment on. And Amy just keeps repeating herself. As I stated before, it would not be judicial or constitutional of me to comment on a case that could come before the Supreme Court or that is an active case. And literally Dianne Feinstein's like, okay, well, let me just try this one. She just keeps going and going and going down the list. It's hilarious. Kamala Harris, she hardly asks Amy any questions. She's basically there to lecture her on race and inequality, and then use the opportunity of her time speaking to attack Trump and his policies. That seems to be kind of like the consensus across the board with most of the Democrats, is they use that time to basically attack Trump on his policies, which I don't really understand what that has to do with Amy Coney Barrett's position on the Supreme Court. Cory Booker schooled her on, for the majority of the time today, on disenfranchisement of the Black voter, which I thought was kind of funny. So he, by the way, okay, I kind of wonder if prior to 2020, if the definition of disenfranchisement was what it is today. If you look it up in the dictionary, it's all about like the voter and this, that, and the other. To me, being disenfranchised is like being given an unfair advantage. And to me, being unfair to somebody is to like impose something upon them which they have no control over, right? So Cory used, like, for instance, the example of there being really long lines in inner city voting locations, okay? Which I mentioned in an Instagram story that I posted the other day, that like I went to go vote. I live in Dallas. There's a high Black population in Dallas. I'm voting for Dallas County. And I didn't experience any long lines where I went, and I went to a community college to go vote. Okay, there's so many polling locations, and I think in each area, like for me, I think I had a total of like 8 or 9 options where I could go. So my suggestion to people would be to like drive around. Right now it's early voting. Drive around different times of day, see which locations are busy and when they're busy, or call to those locations and ask them and just say, hey, what time of day is best to come, to come vote? Most of these locations are open till 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, and a lot of them have weekend hours as well. But Cory used the opportunity to talk about the long lines. Like, what is Amy Coney Barrett going to do about lines in each individual city for voting locations? Wouldn't that be the job of the governor of that state, or maybe the mayor, to make sure that they have more polling locations for people? I don't understand what that had to do with her or why he brought that up. The other thing he brought up was felons, can't vote because they have restrictions, and how unfair that is. And most felons are Black, and blah, blah, blah. I was literally yelling at the TV going, okay, but nobody forced you to commit a crime. Nobody forced you to have like a bag of weed on you. And while we're talking about Black men who got hit with felonies, for small amounts of weed, which is something he brought up, why don't you ask that question of Kamala Harris, who created the entire law that disenfranchised all these Black men and made it difficult for them to vote because they have a felony record for petty, drug crime or whatever the fact may be? Why don't you ask her that question? Why are you asking Amy Coney Barrett about restrictions that felons face? I think the fact of the matter is, like, there has to be some personal responsibility there, Teach your kids not to commit crimes. Teach your kids to follow the law, and those things won't affect them. They even asked her, like, oh, how would you feel? Or do you feel like, you have to have a discussion with your 2 Black children about this? And she answered the question really well. I mean, she was like, of course, we have those discussions with them all the time. And we recognize that there is, some racial bias that goes on. She didn't say that there was like a pandemic of racism, but she recognizes that there are racial biases that happen and they occur. But, I'm willing to put money on the fact that I'm sure her children, who are growing up in a home with a mother and a father, and who are being given, the proper information about how important it is to be a good citizen. They have God in their life, they have parents that teach those values. So chances are their kids are not going to have to deal with not being able to vote because they have a felony record. Now, I could be completely wrong. Things could go south, but I'm just saying, okay? He also talked about the lack of education on voting, again, in underprivileged neighborhoods. Again, how is that, what does that have to do with her? Okay, she gets cases brought before her and then makes a ruling based on those cases. Okay, it is not her job to just like pick an issue and go after it. Okay, again, we need to make sure that we are addressing the correct people about these issues in our specific areas. And I don't think a Supreme Court justice, when she's being confirmed, needs to be confronted with those issues. But you know, he wanted her to comment on those things. That was the whole reason why he was bringing them up, is because he wanted to know her stance on those issues. And she, again, could not give her opinion on those issues. She could just say, yes, I recognize that that is a problem, but she couldn't state her opinion or what she would do if by chance that issue would be brought before her in the Supreme Court. So that is very, very important to note. That being said, I just want to say, I'm pretty sure she's got this in the bag. She ran circles around these senators like crazy, okay? She is incredibly smart. Most of these people couldn't even hardly question her because she knew more than they did, and she was answering the questions before they even asked them or addressing the questions. So I want to know, did you guys watch the day 1, 2, or 3 of the confirmation hearings, or are you just going to join in at the last minute? Do you not even care? I would suggest you go back and watch them. I learned a great deal. I was almost embarrassed to admit that I didn't know half of the stuff that they were talking about, but I sat through every single day of the hearings thus far. So drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, we'll talk about it, and I will be back very soon with the next video. So make sure you like this video, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.